a space of knowing where you want to be met and not being met consistently, it just
Mhm.
can become very lonely, I guess, where I
Yeah,
was headed. You know what I mean?
yeah, it definitely can be.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely can be. I think, oof, that's heavy. It's
Yeah.
really heavy. I think one of the big challenges, personally, that I found is like in life, like even outside of like psychedelic experiences and spirituality and all of that, but or not that it really can be separated from it, but that's just like just like the life journey for me. A lot of it has been finding the people that I can connect with authentically,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, and letting go of who I think those people should be or what I think those situations should look like, and just trusting what it feels like and knowing when I'm there and listening to it, and also listening to it when I'm not there, because
Mm-hmm.
so much of what I think I'm supposed to want has been informed by like what my mom wants for me and what my dad wants for me and the kind of person I'm supposed to end up with and
Mm-hmm.
the kind of, life that I'm supposed to want to have. And so often I'll get those things and be like, I am miserable.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Hammy from the Psychedelic Sisterhood, and today we have Tiana. She is an actress and a musician, and for the past 5 years, she's been writing her original music. And you can find her at Tiana Coles Music on Instagram. Thank you for joining us, Tiana.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Tiana is going to talk about her LSD experience with us today. So when this comes out, it'll be Bicycle Day, but because it's not yet, but this will come out on Bicycle Day. So thank you for sharing that with us. And I guess take it away, but I want to start off by asking, uh, like your first experience with LSD, well, your experience with LSD. How did that come about?
Hmm. So my first experience, I was bartending at the time, and I had just finished up a pretty late shift. So the bar closed at 4. Was definitely hanging out after hours,
Oh, yes.
and I like late. And so I'm headed home in the morning. It's like 8 a.m. And I get a text from the guy that I'm seeing at the time, who tripped pretty regularly, was very experienced, and it had kind of been on our like relationship bucket list, but we hadn't gotten there yet. And so he's like, hey, want to do a trip today? Are you out? And I'm like, yeah, I'm off work. I can come over, sure.
Sure, why not?
I was like, yeah, I'm not doing anything. I was off for a few days after, so it seemed fine. And so I went over, and he was a really good guide in terms of letting me know what to expect. Um, but I don't know, it ended up being a very deep, like spiritual thing for me, which is not what I expected, because I
Mm-hmm.
expected it to be very like just like fun and just sort of like, yeah, why not? And ended up being a lot more than I thought, but in a good way.
Okay,
Um,
good.
so basically, he told me like, you're not going to know what to expect. It's different for everyone. Like, it doesn't matter if I tell you what it's like for me, it's going to be different
Mm-hmm.
for you. So just like relax, try not to have any expectations, go with it. I'll be here if you have questions, I'll be here to guide you. One thing he told me was not to look in the mirror, which was very
Yeah.
interesting. And
101.
I later disobeyed. I was like, oh, I want to know what's in there. And he's like, don't go. Like, I'm going. I'll tell you when I need you to help me out. So fun. We'll get to mirror worlds later.
Hmm.
But um, but yeah, when I first started to come up, I had been watching this movie. I think we were watching, oh my gosh, Ready Player One, I think.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah,
That's a
and
good
so
one.
even that, it was a really interesting movie to watch for the whole
Mm-hmm.
experience too, because it is sort of meta, like they're like in a video game.
Mm-hmm.
So it
Yeah.
it was a very interesting, like being a couple of layers removed already.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I'm noticing colors around the TV, and then I notice something moving on the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
And when I start looking up at the ceiling, he's like guiding. So he's like, "What do you see?" And I'm like, I think it's a dragon.
Mm.
And he's like, what does a dragon want? And I was like, I think she's me. And that just became the whole thing. Like when it came into focus, I'm looking up at this huge, like majestic, intimidating
Wait, it was
dragon.
like 3D or was it like you could see
No,
through it or?
it was very like three-dimensional. Like the first thing I noticed were like these two huge eyes on the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
And then noticed that it was this whole dragon thing. But like friendly, but also like
Intense.
like, I was just like, hi. And I realized I was looking at like, I don't know if you want to call it like the super ego or like my eternal self or whatever, but I was like, oh shit, that is me.
Mm.
And I seemed to be in this little like dragon egg. So I was like all the way at the bottom of things, looking up at this bigger thing. And I was just like, oh my effing.
That's intense. So was it looking at you or interacting with you, or were you just like an observer?
It was looking at me at first, and I was very aware of like, I felt like I could feel expectations, and I felt like my id, you know, I felt very much in like play mode and like little kid mode, like woo, but also being aware of this much bigger thing. And it was odd because throughout the trip, I like became the dragon, and like toward the end of it, like I had wings and I had a tail, and it was so cool. Even like after when I was walking home and like my afterglow, I'm crossing the street and I like moved my tail out of the way as I'm passing these cars. I'm like, oh, excuse me, that's mine.
People are like, what? Wait, so walk us through how you became the dragon.
It was very odd, and not odd as well. But what started to happen is that I started to feel, and this is the bit that's a bit deeper. I have quite a bit of trauma in my past, and I started to feel compelled to start looking into those things. And so at one point, in addition to feeling this dragon on the ceiling and feeling like I'm in this dragon egg plant thing, I'm also looking at the wall and I'm seeing sort of like the best way to describe it. Do you watch Game of Thrones?
Yes.
Okay. So remember when Tyrion gets captured? I think he's like at the Vale, and they have those dungeons where it's basically on the side of a mountain, and if you roll out of your cell, you'll just like fall.
Yeah, you just plummet. Yeah.
Yeah, it looked a lot like that, where I'm looking at like the side of a castle that have all these different rooms that I can just look into. But then one part of the castle was dark. It was like there was like a shade, like when you're watching like an action movie or like a fantasy movie, and there's like an instant night area or something like that. So I was very aware like that I could go into all of these rooms, and these rooms were memories, and I could move in and out as I wanted, but I knew that the shadow part was really dangerous for me. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to go in there. I'm only going to go over here. Once I started going into the shadow part, I started doing like trauma work and seeing like things that maybe I knew about myself on some level, but wasn't really facing up front and accepting some things that I hadn't like repressed but hadn't thought about in a long time. And so through that started to do a lot of churning and a lot of thinking. And time is very different on LSD. So different. So I'd go into one room and I'd feel like I was in there for 2 hours, and I'd come up and I'm like, it's been 13 minutes. It's like I just went through like my whole like 10 years of life. I just had an epiphany and it's been 13 minutes.
Isn't that crazy?
What is going on? But yeah, as I started going into the rooms, like every time that I would come out, I'd be a little bit more like connected to the dragon up there. And then eventually, like I think I hit a really big like root trauma. And I don't know how in depth you want to go.
Let's go. Let's
I
go.
can go
I'm here.
So in one of the rooms, I saw this other version of myself. So I'm feeling like a little baby dragon. I'm looking at this big dragon on the ceiling that's awesome and scary, but awesome, but scary. And I go into this room and I'm seeing this little, like, kind of looks like a baby dragon, but also sort of looks like, I keep doing these movie references, but sort of like, oh my gosh, what's the adorable little elf's name in Harry Potter?
Oh, Dobby?
Dobby.
Yeah.
But sort of Dobby, like, in that it's like a scruffy dragon that's like not well taken care of, and
Like
it's like
little
super
droopy.
skinny and sort of like just like dying. It was like at the on this like stone floor and just like really curled up and had like things coming off of it like it was in the upside down or something. Just like
Oh shit.
just looking very like wounded and not okay. And then I'm seeing like this sort of like well around it. And then all of the people in my life are up here. So I'm completely removed from everyone. And everyone's looking in and like cares about me and is trying to interact with me, but can't get to me because I'm in this thing. And I was doing a lot of thinking when I saw that, because something that I had always been very afraid of, maybe on a subconscious level, I was always very, very afraid of abandonment. So in day-to-day life, it looked like me people pleasing a lot. It looked like me not being honest about my preferences, my likes, my dislikes, like just kind of going along, especially with the people close to me, because my fear was, if I say no, they're going to leave me. If I tell them something that they don't want to hear, so maybe they're in a relationship with someone who's not good for them, or something, and I make that observation and they're upset, they're going to leave me. Like, I was very, very concerned with upsetting people because I was afraid of being alone. And when I saw this, I realized, because I'm not showing up as myself, I'm already alone. Not because no one's there. Like, they're all there, they're up here, but they're not getting to me because
I'm interacting with you.
Yeah, I'm inside all of this, subterfuge of trying to be what I think everybody needs me to be, but I'm just by myself in here. So it was very pivotal for me, because I was like, oh, okay. But it was helpful also because it kind of showed me that the thing that I was afraid of was already happening, and then there's nowhere to go but up from there.
Yeah.
That's like, oh, the fear is here.
Yeah, that's terrifying, but also kind of uplifting, because you're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, we can start going
It's
up.
kind of like a relief. It's like, oh, it happened already.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that's amazing.
Yeah, that was a really big pivotal moment. And coming out of that little room, I think, is when I was like, is this a wing?
Oh, nice. So you're like building yourself. Each room you go to, you're building.
Yeah, just like getting more like embodied, kind of, and being like, okay, I've got all these fun things.
There's something to be said about people coming into themselves at a certain point in time. Like you said, that sometimes you had a feeling about, and I'm not trying to like psychoanalyze or anything, but for me personally, this is something I've been through as well, so I can totally relate about people pleasing and wanting everyone, making sure everyone around me was happy and taken care of before I was, or putting people before me, before myself. And it took me a while to really understand where that came from. And I think with psychedelics, I was able to kind of, see those things. LSD, I haven't had a ton of experience with. I've only been taking half tabs, so I haven't gone deep yet. I haven't turned to a dragon just yet. But with ayahuasca and with mushrooms, I've been able to kind of get deep into these moments where I'm just like, oh, remember that thing that you did last week? Like, this is what that was all about. And I was like, oh, I had no idea. Like, I thought I was being a normal person, but I was pre-programmed from a younger age to sort of have these reactions that I didn't even realize I was making. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I think it's really crazy how it gets into here, like
Hmm.
all the stuff that parts of your brain know that you don't really know about yourself.
Hmm.
It's constantly playing out in these loops, and then
Hmm.
once you do have access to it, it's like, what?
Yeah, it's like, wait. You mean I can change this?
And what I found really interesting too is that after the fact, like it wasn't as though like the trip was pretty long. I'm not sure if you can tell from here, but I'm a pretty petite person. I'm
Mhm.
5'2", I'm 100 pounds soaking wet, so I'm a
Mhm.
petite person. And so I had like a normal dose.
Mhm.
I was told the trip would be probably about 12 hours. For me, it was about 19. Um,
Oh, how many tabs? Or was it like um
it was just one.
zero?
Yeah, this isn't the first time either that I've tried something that's hit me harder than the people around me. I think it might be just like that I'm smaller, or the way I metabolize things, or maybe my weird brain, because I am neurodivergent. So I don't
Mm.
know.
You're what? Neurodivergent?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what that means.
So I'm actually in a couple of ways, but
Mhm.
I recently learned that I'm on the spectrum,
Mhm.
and so and I've had mood irregularities for the last like 12 years.
Mhm.
So it's possible that the way that my brain releases things is
Mhm.
just atypical. And so taking a
Ah.
substance that changes the way that your brain chemistry works, it follows that it wouldn't necessarily have exactly the same, not that it's the same for anyone, but
Mhm.
the time periods might be a little bit different. Um, yeah.
Do you think that affects so I can go backwards. So this LSD trip that you had, it wasn't the first psychedelic trip that you've taken, right?
That was my first
That was your
psychedelic.
very first.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. So since then, you've taken more.
I have. Since then, I've had a full LSD trip again,
Uh-huh.
and I've also had little baby mushroom experiences, like very micro,
Mm-hmm.
very very micro. And
So do,
I feel like I can say this now because it's legal, but I also feel like every time I have weed, I get like if sober reality is here and
mm-hmm.
LSD world is here, like
Mm-hmm.
weed now takes me here. You know,
Halfway.
I'm somewhere halfway between where I'm like, oh yeah, I can see the curtain. I just can't pull it back right now, but I get it. I get it. It's a
Mm-hmm.
weird.
So, do you think being neurodivergent has an effect on how you process psychedelics, or I mean, even how you explain that you can see the veil with weed? Like, I know I've never seen the veil on weed. It's got me stupid. It's got me tired. Or like, but edibles have gotten me there, but recently,
Mm.
but just smoking it hasn't. So that's really interesting that because that you've smoked it and had much more of a profound experience than I've heard before.
Well, that's what's interesting is I actually, because I sing, I try not to smoke. So typically, I am talking about edibles when I'm talking
Ah,
about
okay.
weed. Even before I had access to like easy edibles, I would make my own little like witchy tea
Mm-hmm.
like, that would take 3 hours to make, but was super worth it.
Self
Um,
care, self care.
exactly. I've always had trouble sleeping, so that was a lot of what that was for as well, just to help me kind of like turn my mind off and like get to a place where I'm a little more open and able to kind of just like release and surrender to sleep. Because usually I'm just like in here, just churning.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about the question though. I guess it's a it's a solid I don't know. The reason that it's an I don't know is that I only just learned, so within the last couple of months, only just learned that I'm on the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm sort of like rationalizing after the fact and thinking like, yeah, maybe that's why I had a different response. But from the research that I've done and the people that I've spoken to, I think that having past trauma had more to do with how I processed it than anything else. It was really transformative because after the fact, I was able to feel how my brain was working differently, and how like if a trigger would happen, as opposed to me going into that fight or flight reaction where now I'm just like, ah, I'm like
Mm-hmm.
okay, I see this happening, but I have so much space between my thoughts all of a sudden. And now I can like think about it and choose all these
Process,
different
yeah.
responses. So it's like, it's weird because I never had that time before. Like that reaction time just got like drawn out, and I'd see all these options and I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. I didn't have this before. What is this?
Yes. Yeah. Also, similarly, I think that's why. Okay, so I had a year where I was doing ayahuasca almost every weekend, which
Oh,
I would not recommend to anyone. But I just started taking it, and I think what attracted me the most about those weekends was that it was like I'm always stuck in my head. I'm always like
mhm.
thinking about everything at a million miles an hour, and that sometimes hinders how I process, my emotions, and it hinders how I process things that are happening that where I have like a very emotional response, and I don't know how to, I'm battling with trying to be the good person and not make people upset, but also I want to be true to myself, and sometimes those wires get crossed, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So you know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking
Yes.
about. It feels
So
like
yes,
right
yes.
in your head.
And you can't really, and it's like either or, and there's no in between. And so I feel like on those weekends, what kept bringing me to them was I think I was literally addicted to the feeling of being able to calm my mind, which
Mm.
sounds weird. I was able to just calm my mind just for a moment. And then after a while, I don't know how much you know about ayahuasca, but a lot of people that take it say that it has like a personality of its own, and it's there's intelligence to it. So at some of my last couple of ceremonies, and that within that time, nothing happened, and I was really upset because I was like, I really want to get to that point where I'm not thinking like a million miles an hour. Like I want to get, because like for the next, like you said, the afterglow, you're feeling it for like a good while, like the afterglow of ayahuasca, at least for the next week.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
I'm able to think, I'm able to like process properly, and I'm able to be okay with saying no, you know what I mean? Like, and then after that, then I start getting in my head again. But yeah, the last two times nothing happened. I got really frustrated, and I was like, what the fuck? And
I was
then
the ayahuasca was like, okay, you're done.
exactly. And Ayahuasca was like, I'm showing you these things and I'm giving these tools to you, but don't come to me for the tools. I already gave them to you.
Right,
Leave them
yeah.
on your own. And then after that, I was like, okay, thanks, Mama Aya. You know, and to be like, all right. So after that, like I'd stopped my whole like trail of ceremonies, and now I may or may not have it once a year now. I think the last time was like 2 years ago, but yeah, there's something to be said about, and this is why I'm doing these talks too. It's like I'm so fascinated for selfish reasons also. If psychedelics affects people the same way it's affected me, also for substances that I don't have much experience with, like for you LSD, like I have a little experience. I've only taken half tabs, and that doesn't really do too much. It just makes you feel kind of funny, I guess, and makes
Yeah, I just get a
colors
little,
a little brighter. Yeah, exactly.
oh, that's like a perfect turtle shape. That's insane.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like when I was in the actual trip, once I started doing the like going in and out of my memories and really like exploring some of the darker parts, I started feeling more embodied as like I am full
Mhm.
dragon, which was super cool. Um, but that was way like I feel like that was toward the end when I was fully in the dragon body, and then at a certain point, like to be honest, I was just exhausted because I
Mm.
all of this thinking, all of this like work. And at that point, it was now like 13, 14 hours. And I'm like,
Oh my
okay, I was supposed to be
gosh.
done. This is still happening. What's going on?
So your boyfriend's probably asleep at this time, right? Or the
Of
guy that
course
you're
he is.
seeing.
They're always asleep. Always just like, head, yeah, I'll just take a nap, head pillow done. And I'm just like,
You're like, I'm peeking. What are you doing? Oh.
I couldn't sleep on it.
Hmm.
So I just started, I think that was the other reason why I started doing such deep exploration, because now like I have this person I was tripping with, now you're asleep, and I'm like, and this is me every night of insomnia for my whole life. Just now it's just me and all the decisions I've made for my entire life, just to contemplate all of that. Okay.
But all for the better good. All for the better good.
I had the sushi. It's everything from like lunch to like 10 years ago you broke up with that guy. Was that smart? I'm just like, where did it start? I think after too, though, like certain things just like did stay with me. Like this is a silly thing. And I'm not sure if you can see it right. I'll put my hands up to the screen, but this is a silly thing that before my trip, I would always wear my nails like short and kind of like square because I play piano and it was just like easy. And they grow really fast. So I try to keep them like, and then after that, I was like, I think I want to grow out my talons.
Yeah, nice.
Like I miss having my talons. I liked my talons. And then ever since I've been doing, so this is my nail shape.
Oh, it's a cute shape, the oval shape.
Yeah, they're very short. I just cut them the other day because they got out of control. I like it when they're long because it feels very natural for me, but I have to balance it with like what makes sense for piano because then they get noisy and it just sounds like another instrument.
Click.
Just a hot mess. But it's very interesting because I started thinking of my fingers as like my little talons,
like claws almost. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very weird how that changed just how I feel in my body. Just
and
like
that's really interesting too, because like it's a journey you went through in your mind, and now you're like more comfortable like coming into yourself, like you came into, you know, your wings or your tail or, you know, skills or whatever. And it's definitely a direct correlation. Do you find, like, personality wise, do you find that you have a much more of a fierceness to you now, like as far as like not like being a dick or anything, but like, you know what I mean? But like being able to say no more easily or anything like that.
Definitely. That didn't leave at all. That's something that once I saw really clearly that I was holding myself back from what I wanted because I wasn't showing up, then it became the work, like the daily work of trying to show up more authentically. And that's been a journey. That isn't something where like the next day I was like, fuck this, I'm gonna be me now. Wish. It's really been like incremental. And there will be moments sometimes where like, I think like not so much now, but like COVID also helped to a degree, not the virus itself, but just the isolation, because it forced me to be with myself more. And so now I'm more aware of when I'm being pulled away from myself because I got used to being so consistently centered and just away from people. But for example, like what used to happen when I'm thinking about like my early 20s, mid 20s, God, I'd like go to a bar, sit with the intention of like getting a glass of wine, working on an outline for something that I'm writing or something that I'm doing. And if the guy turned next, like sitting next to me, turned to me and asked my name and just started telling me his life story, I wouldn't be able to stop him talking. I'd just be trapped and just be sitting there listening like, God, why won't this end? And like trying to give off hints and being politely like, okay, I'm gonna go back to my work now. Oh, what are you working on? And the conversation just, I'm just like, please release me. Like that used to happen to me all the time in so many various scenarios. And now if I ever see myself in that place where I feel like I'm there, but I'm not, you know, where I want to be, I'm much more able to be like, I'm gonna step away. And just like doing a better job of like not feeling like I need to offer as much explanation as I thought I needed to. I still need to learn to stop apologizing because I do that all the time. And every time I hear it come out of my mouth, I'll apologize for existing. I'll literally be like, oh, so sorry. And it's like, for what? For being here. I'm sorry for me. I was on the phone with my friend the other day and I slammed my finger in the cabinet, and it was one of those fun moments where I had dipping powder gel on, and if I didn't have that on, I think my entire nail would have come off. But you know that dipping powder gel is like, you know, it's just that I'm trying to think like mutant nail polish. It's just like, girl. I was like, ow, my finger looks fine, but it really hurts. And I'm saying, I'm so sorry. And she's like, you're in pain. Why are you apologizing?
Yeah.
Weird stuff like that I'll still catch myself doing, but at least I see it now and I catch it. And I'm like, no, you don't have to apologize for having an uncomfortable emotion. Like, you're allowed to get the space.
Absolutely. No permission to just exist, to just be, you know what I mean? There's something about you have permission to take up space, or giving permission to take up space, or something like that. I don't know, I'm butchering that phrase, but but that exactly that, like, you know,
taking up space is hard. I feel like the only time I've ever been comfortable taking up space is when I'm on stage, and it's really interesting because that's when you literally have permission, when someone's like, okay, it's your turn, go. And then I'm like, I can be now? Okay, whoosh. Like, let out all my stuff. And then the song ends and I go back into this little place. And I'm like, okay, bye, everybody. I'm trying to learn to be in that space more, where I'm just like, whoosh all the time. It's hard. It's
because you know what it is? On stage, and this sounds weird, but because you're in front of maybe a bunch of people, but on stage is pretty safe because there's an expectation that you're going to be over the top. You know what I mean? But it's in everyday life where I guess people are having more of an expectation of being even killed, I think.
Yeah.
And
conformity and very.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're a little bit too much, then that puts you out of the, I guess, even killed lane, I suppose, or lack of better words. Because I was coming from a space like that as well. Like, I like doing this podcast is something I never thought I'd ever do. I'm so quiet and like so meek growing up, and I not only spoke when I was spoken to, and yeah, it was bad. But but at some point, like I started to realize, you know, after so many psychedelic experiences, that and it was okay being loud sometimes. It was okay being obnoxious. Because I feel so bad. Like, you know, you have a late night and I get drunk, like in my early 20s. And then like I'd be texting my friends the next day. I'm so sorry. Was I obnoxious? They're like, no, you were actually a lot of fun. Because I was usually quiet. So I actually spoke up. And they're like, no, you were amazing. What are you talking about?
We want more of that.
Exactly.
Maybe not tripping and falling, but the.
Yes. Maybe not that. Like
walk, but also like talk.
But yeah, so like, and I start to realize more and more about how easy it was to tell myself that wasn't okay when it wasn't the truth. You know what I mean? Of course, that's coming from like, you know, having that voice in your head, like, you know, you shouldn't do that, but whose voice is that? It's not mine. You know, it's probably like my parents' voice or somebody else's voice. Doesn't matter. It's not my voice. Unfortunately, it's very difficult coming out of that mindset without psychedelics. So I'm bringing it back to psychedelics.
Everyone should do one.
Everyone, honestly. Because, you know, people were saying Trump needed mushrooms. But then again, I don't know. I know some people that do psychedelics and they don't really change, or they still resist it so hard. You know, so it's really up to the person. Like, the psychedelics won't make someone change. It will show them the path and give them the tools, but it's up to them to really make that change, you know?
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with like just your composition, like who you are. I know, yeah, certainly people who trip pretty often, who do it really casually. Like they're just like, it's a party drug, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to a concert this weekend, so I'm gonna, you know what I mean? And it's
I couldn't do.
Yeah, I also
have.
I need to be in a very controlled environment. I'm like, okay, Are we going to be in this park? Cool. Let's put little stakes down. Do not pass the stake. Stay here. Like, am I
Yeah.
in the apartment? Great. Order all the food ahead of time. Everything's locked.
Yeah.
Blocking all the exits. Cool.
Set and setting. That's the one thing I cannot stress enough. Set and setting is so important. So important. And like a party isn't the best place. Like maybe if you're on a low enough dose, it could be fun, but I would never recommend ever. But that all is, yeah, because I'm coming from the angle of, oh, psychedelics heal,
Yeah, we're gonna get
for my spirituality side.
yeah. It's such a different angle, and it's like even for me, not even thinking it would be that angle, thinking it would be more woo party, it ended up being that. And then I know folks who are just like, yeah, this is what I take at concerts, or they'll be telling me about their experiences at like day long. Gosh, what am I thinking about? I'm thinking about something like Gathering of the Juggalos, where it's like something for days, where people are
like a festival.
Like, yeah, that's the word, festival.
Yeah.
Like, how? There's so many variables.
Random people, random circumstances. It's too risky. It's too
I would
tricky.
always want the option to go back to a safe place. Like, there's bed. I want to go be. Oh.
Well, that's why they have those little huts. Sometimes they'll have like a little hut that's like the chill hut or the calm zone or whatever. But granted, still, you don't know that person. Like, I feel like my space would have to be the chill space. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or like, I just want to be in my one hoodie that feels like a safe hoodie. Like, where's my hoodie?
Yeah. What else have you gotten into besides LSD? Like for your trip? Oh, how long ago did you start taking psychedelics?
So that was, how old was I? I believe I was 29. So that was 3 years ago.
Okay. Looking great.
Oh, thanks. So LSD those have really been my lengthier, like really deep divey trips. I have tried mushrooms, but in smaller doses, where I've had experiences, but not the same kind of like psychedelic journey. I've been very curious about ayahuasca. I've had some friends who've tried it in these very like shamanic journey experiences. I haven't, and I'm very curious about that.
It depends. It definitely depends. It's so funny because I just did a podcast with my friend here in Brooklyn. Okay. I had it for the first time. I made a trip with my friends to go to Peru, and something happened, and they ended up not. Paige was one of them. They ended up not being able to go with me, and I ended up going, to the jungle, and I was like, this is amazing. Like, I'm in nature, and I love camping, and I love like being in nature. I love the beach, everything. But being here really made me feel very connected to nature in a way I'd never felt before. So when I came back, it was like, oh, how am I going to take this? How am I going to have the same experience and feeling when I'm in like the concrete jungle? You know what I mean? But yeah, it was different, but I think the first couple of times I did it, I wasn't 100% comfortable. Set and setting, like I didn't feel safe. Not necessarily I didn't feel safe. I just didn't feel 100% comfortable. Like I didn't feel like I could really meditate and concentrate and like block out everything around me because I just wasn't familiar with the area. But once I had did the ceremony with this group of people twice, I knew what to expect, and I was, I knew same people were coming back to the ceremony, so I was like, okay, so it's the same group of people. I know I can trust them, and then I was able to kind of just like let go and go on these very like in depth journeys, and some of them were just like you said, you saw a dragon and it seems so fantastical. Like I've definitely saw entities. I've definitely spoken to entities. Went off to different I went off to a planet once. Went off to this, yeah.
Where did you go?
But it wasn't even like it was weird because it was like you think, oh wow, you went to another planet. It must have been amazing. What was it like? But it was like it felt like a place I'd already been. Like, I felt like home, and it felt like I was coming back home to like from college. So it was like, ah, I know this place. I'm not impressed. I felt so
Oh,
snotty.
interesting. Oh
But
gosh, where are you from?
who knows? I don't know, but it was fun. But it was weird because anytime I do like travel to like someplace different, it's always for like a blip. And it's not until I wake up and I start remembering details. Cause like ayahuasca, I don't know how intense the messages were coming on LSD, but with ayahuasca and DMT as well, like I feel like the messages come so fast and they're so intense and it's so much information. Like the downloads are so intense that if you're not writing it down in like the next 10-15 minutes, it's gone, you've forgotten it, because it's too much to keep in your mind.
Oh wow.
And like just the other day I was looking through one of my old notebooks and I was like, wow, I don't remember drawing this entity, I don't remember meeting this person. Like it was crazy. It's like eh, yeah, I can't even explain it. But the weird thing about it though, it's difficult differentiating if it's like a dream state or if it's something that it feels real. It feels like an actual experience. Like, you know how those dreams that you have that feel very lucid and it
Mm-hmm.
feel very real? That's essentially how it feels.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah, so it's like at what and then those dreams I really hold significance with because it really feels like, I've discussed something with whatever entity I was having a conversation with,
Yeah.
or I did solve like an issue or talk to an ancestor, or you know what I mean, stuff like that. So I mean, I feel that way about that, but then when it comes to like if there's another planet and I may be an alien, I'm just like, I don't know, maybe it was a dream. But what
Or maybe.
or maybe
You are so
exactly,
cute.
exactly, right. But
Or
it's funny though.
you know what they could be.
Right, exactly. I have no idea. But the one thing I did have from that really amazing experience from, going to another planet and feeling like feeling like Earth was the college, and I was coming home and I was like, yeah, here to do laundry, gotta go back to Earth. It's all like the family dog.
Like
It's
raid the
like
fridge. Hi.
all right, I need lunch for the next 2 days.
So interesting.
but but when I woke up, I took an Uber home, and on the way home, I passed by a cemetery. And when I passed by the cemetery, that thought came back about the other planet and how I was on Earth, like it was a college, like it was a learning school or something.
Oh wow.
And I was, I guess, told or given that feeling that my body, my biological body, had volunteered itself so that I can have this experience and I can have the experience of being human. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so grateful. You know what I mean? Like I was filled with so much gratitude for having that feeling. And since then, like, there's that saying where your body's a temple and you have to treat your body, right, or whatever, however that phrase goes. And at no point did that feel like did I really feel that until that ride home. And I was like, oh yeah, no, I actually have to take care of this body. Like no one else is going to take care of it for me. And like how like shitty of me to like, booze it up and and like eat shit food and like not exercise because I'm just like, I don't feel like doing it. But it's like this body volunteered itself. Like treat it right, you know
It's
if you're gonna have like your extend your I guess I don't know how to explain it, extend your class here on Earth. If you want to get all the experience you possibly can out of Earth, treat it well, you'll last a little bit longer and you'll have all the experiences you can. um yeah, that was weird.
interesting. Because when you're saying that, I've definitely begun, like, since my experience, to think of my body in a very, like, as a very separate thing from
Mm-hmm.
me. Like I feel like me is that, you know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
spirit thing. And I feel like
Absolutely.
I'm in here right now, but I very much don't feel like this is me. I feel like this is very much like, this is my avatar. This is what I'm in here.
Yeah.
And it's just very interesting to think of it as like that the body volunteered itself so that you could have this experience. I think of it very much as like a vessel, just like a thing that you're like a temporary home kind of thing.
Absolutely.
And it's definitely
like a spacesuit, like a meat spacesuit.
Yeah, a cute little spacesuit. It changes the way that I think about having bodily experiences as well, though. Just because it doesn't feel as, I don't know. I think I'm running back up a patriarchy tree, but again, like I think as women, like we're taught to think of our bodies so much of as ourselves, you know. There's so much focus on our body.
We're objectified so often.
Yeah.
That we start objectifying ourselves on our own.
Right. Like we're told like this is you, this is you, this is you. And not just this is you, but this is all that you are. And this is the most important part of you, the part that I can see, the part that I can have, you know what I mean? And so moving into a space of like, actually,
let me tell you. Let me tell you what I found out.
This is me. I'm in here. Meet my avatar.
Avatar wave. There you go. Perfect.
I feel like that's changed the way that I date a lot too, because I feel much more aware of when someone is interacting with me and when someone is interacting with it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, oh yeah, you're not even, you don't even see me. You're stuck here.
Precisely. I'm glad you said that because I've been having the same feeling. Like I haven't, it's gonna sound terrible. I haven't dated since 2017. And like I've been here and there. Like it's not like I haven't talked to people and had a drink with a few people, but I'm very, and the reason why I haven't like dated seriously is because I realize people are interacting with this and not with me inside. You know what I mean? And it's hard to say. Like no one's gonna know you from first meeting you, first couple of dates or whatever. That's great. That's fine. But at the same time, you can tell by like questions that are asked or like you know just how you're being interacted with and like I really like I'm not a small talker at all really. I really try to speak to people from like the heart space and to really like you know see what people are about and let them know what I'm about. And when I put that forward and I feel the conversation becoming more and more surface from their end, I'm just like, okay, you're not interested at all in me, are you? You're just interested in this. Then it gets really difficult to keep dating in that sense. Not that I'm going to stop dating forever, obviously, no, definitely not. But I'm just more aware when it's more sexy time or when I want to actually get to know someone. You know what I mean?
I think it's so meaningful to connect here. I think that's what I'm not that I can speak for all the humans, but I know that's what I'm looking for, like a connection that is here and not just wiggling my avatar there. And it's I think it's a bit exhausting too to like put this forward and be like, hi, hello, and then to be met with someone who's not trying to connect with you from that space. It's like, oh, okay, well, good. You know, it's very off-putting.
Disappointing.
Yeah. Something that I encounter a lot, which is like equally disappointing, is just in a different way, is interacting with someone who is in a space that's very much like you know, in the very beginning we were talking about like first trips and kind of like coming into yourself and the way that you behave out in the world, like people pleasing and stuff like that, before you've come into yourself versus after, where you're a little more centered and a little more authentic and less concerned with like almost like putting on this performance for other people. It's really disheartening to meet someone who's still putting on that performance.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, that's work that you can't do for another person. That's something that everybody has to come to that in their own time.
Isn't that its own lesson?
It is. And it's really hard because it's like, you want to connect with someone here and you can see they're doing all of these things, but they're not, it's not lining up. Like,
yeah.
you're not here. You're almost, I almost feel like an audience member. Like, I'm watching you work so hard to prove that you're here in the room, but you're not in the room. It's very,
there's an applause sign.
yeah.
There's an ah sign.
Where my cues are, where I'm supposed to go, aha.
Yeah.
It's like, oof, this is hurting my heart to even be a part of right now.
You're like, this was fun. I'm gonna get out of here. I'll leave you and your avatar to be.
I need to go have avocado toast or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that is a lot, and it's a lot to know. There was like some saying, I keep going with these random sayings, or I don't know who said them, but I remember hearing at some point.
I know the anecdote.
Whoever's watching this, I'm driving them crazy. It was Nietzsche. Nietzsche said it. I'm so sorry. But there was definitely, I forgot what I was going to say. Well, anyway, let's move on. I got too committed to that joke that I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, I got it. Something about loneliness and wisdom or something like that. Like the wise man is the loneliest or something like that. I'm probably remembering it wrong, but something on that in that spectrum. So while
feelings.
So while I've been doing this work with psychedelics and I'm no psychoanalyst and I definitely don't know, much, but what I do know and what fits with my life, like I find myself understanding more deeply than I thought I would ever. And like you said, you meet people that are still playing the show. I find myself coming from such an authentic place where I meet people that are playing the show, claiming they're authentic, and then telling me about how unauthentic I am. And I'm just like, wait, what? It's just such a weird, and it sucks because like people have so much potential to be amazing beings, and to have someone like you said, like a grandmother or something, to reject, the new opportunities just because this is all they know. It's coming from a space of knowing where you want to be met and not being met consistently. It just can become very lonely, I guess, where I was headed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it definitely can be. Definitely can be. I think, oof, that's heavy. It's really heavy. I think one of the big challenges, personally, that I found is like in life, like even outside of like psychedelic experiences and spirituality and all of that, but or not that it really can be separated from it, but that's just like the life journey for me. A lot of it has been finding the people that I can connect with authentically, and letting go of who I think those people should be or what I think those situations should look like, and just trusting what it feels like and knowing when I'm there and listening to it, and also listening to it when I'm not there, because so much of what I think I'm supposed to want has been informed by like what my mom wants for me and what my dad wants for me and the kind of person I'm supposed to end up with and the kind of life that I'm supposed to want to have. And so often I'll get those things and be like, I am miserable.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
It feels like an itchy sweater or something, or like something that's too big, or shoes that are too tight. You're just like, get it off of me.
Shoes that are too tight is a perfect analogy. Expensive and they feel like shit. But yeah, I think that's, a perfect analogy, because like a lot of people are trying to fit into these, paradigms that don't fit them or fit who they are, or don't even know who they are. You know what I mean? They don't know who they are yet. And they're just like, well, I'm supposed to be in this shape. I think. And it doesn't quite work out, but
I feel like we all know at some level. Like, I think if you think about who you were when you were a kid
mm-hmm.
before all of this got in, like, we know who we are.
All the judgment and
Right.
yeah.
But there's a point where it's like there's you, and then you start learning about the world, and you're like, oh, am I wrong? Am I not supposed to do this? Am I not supposed to be this?
Mm-hmm.
Am I supposed to be like that? And then it's like, you know, that's like the beginning of like years and years and years of
Mm-hmm.
the programming that we eventually have to unlearn.
Yes, yes.
And just like get back to, no, how do I just want to be?
Mm-hmm.
And trusting that that's okay is really hard.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. Trusting that is hard. Trusting yourself is hard. I'm going to end this now before I criminate myself anymore. And but I just wanted to thank you so much. This has been a really great conversation. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Me.
Absolutely.
It's so wonderful getting to talk to you and getting to know about your experiences. I may have follow-up questions off camera.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And so since we're ending, I plugged your Tiana Coles music at your Instagram. Is there anything you have coming up or anything you want to like plug or anything like that?
Is there? I don't know. I would say just follow and wait and see. I do have some things in the works, but I don't have release dates yet, and I'm sort of entering a weird place right now. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Okay.
There's things happening right away.
That's good. So everyone go to Tiana Coles Music, check it out. Please follow. I'm following, and she has really good content on there. So yeah, thank you again.
Thank you.